At the moment on the market, there are many options open to us. LED technology has taken over the world. You can buy sequential lights, you can buy flowing lights, you can buy rainbow lights, remote control lights, all sorts of things. But I've chosen two relatively simple options to install. The first one is just a regular stick-on LED strip, which often comes on a roll or a tape, and literally just use silicone to stick it to the back. Unfortunately, you can only do this to what I believe is just the North American model cars that do not have this backing inside the light. If that's the option you want to use and you're in America and you can do that, I would strongly suggest going with that. Now, there are a couple of downfalls to this. First of all, you have limited space in which to fit the lights. So if you're using sequential lights, your sequence will be slightly shorter. However, it is still possible. The beauty of this is you don't have to dismantle the lens, whereas people around the rest of the world that have this backing strip in there have no choice other than to dismantle the entire lens in order to fit the lights. Now, if you're going to do this and if you're going to dismantle it, I'd strongly recommend getting a new replacement lens kit before starting on the task. The problem with dismantling the light is there is a good chance, because of its age, the lens is going to break when you try to separate it. Also, if you buy the lens kit, it will come with all the correct bituminous rubber and sealants to put the light back together once you're finished. So we start off the process by disassembling your old light unit. Now, this was covered in my last video, so if you refer to that, you'll know exactly what to do. Once it's all disassembled and you've removed any mess that needs to be cleaned up first, you can then put all this to one side. But more importantly, you won't be needing this anymore. You can keep that for future use if you decide to return your lights to original. So we'll put that to one side. You put those ready for reassembly. Now, at the moment, as I said, there's a lot of different kits available on the market for modifying lights, etc. This is the kit that I used that you see in the last video, and it's the one that I've chosen to use today because it's relatively easy to use and it fits our needs pretty well. So you can buy this on eBay and all sorts of other shops, online stores. I'm not getting any promotional backhanders or anything. This is genuinely just the easiest one that I found. So in the box, you've got two strips of lights. 30 centimeters is the smallest I could find. We're not going to need 30 centimeters, but I'll show you how to modify them in a minute. The light strip is connected to a control box and some wiring. So what we need to do is a small modification to these. Because they are too long for our use, we're going to cut them down a little bit. And to do that, we're going to need two tools. One is a sharp craft knife. The other one is a suitable blade. The brand is irrelevant as long as it's a nice, easy cut through blade. So with the lights, we need to get the ends off and get the inside out. You'll notice at the moment we've got a sticky strip on one side which prevents the light coming out of this way, and on the other side the LEDs are facing the wrong way. That's because these lights were originally designed to let the light out of the bottom, but that doesn't suit our needs. So we're now going to modify the lights so they fit properly. So on one end, the rubber cap, just using your fingers, will peel off. Nice and easy. You will need to put that back on. Just leave that to one side for now. On the other end, you also have the rubber cap, and again, you'll just peel that off nice and gently. Be careful not to pull on the wires because they're very thin wires and easily broken. Once you've got that off, slide it down a little bit, and here's where your knife comes in. Now, they've filled the end here with mastic, and that makes it impossible to pull the light strip out. So you're going to have to very delicately, and as you can see, I practiced earlier and made a mistake. You need to very delicately cut away the silicone. Now you can see how thick the outer sleeve is. So you need to cut just inside the outer sleeve, being careful not to cut the wires. Now I partially cut this one earlier, so I know where we're going with this. And just gently work your way around, bit by bit, cutting away from the sleeve. Now, as I said, I had a go at this earlier, so it's more or less ready to come out now. Once you've freed it, you're going to slide the LED strip out, like so. So here's where we start the modification. Always be careful of the wires, do not break the wires. What you now need to do is, you see you've got orange for your sequential lights and you've got yellow for your driving lights. They actually show up as bright white and amber. We're going to count 24 orange lights. 1, 2, 3, 4, 5, 6, 7, 8, 9, 10, 11, 12, 13, 14, 15, 16, 17, 18, 19, 20, 21, 22, 23, 24. Immediately after the 24th amber light, you're going to cut straight through there. I prefer to do it with this type of blade myself. And it's quite a tough strip. Just watch you don't cut the amber light. If you mess up the white one, it doesn't matter. So there we go, that should be our light strip ready to go. Now at this point, before you start reassembly, just in case anything's gone wrong, you don't want to assemble your light unit and then find it's no good. So if you get your lights now and cut enough, if you've got some sort of small 12-volt battery, fine. If you only have a car battery like me, you can either slit down the wire so you get longer wires, or you can attach another wire to it. So I just popped away a minute. I went to get some additional cable because at this time I only have a 12-volt car battery to do the testing on. It is important before you continue to test these lights, now you've cut them down, just to make sure nothing went wrong. So with a little bit of assistance here, we'll just quickly connect these up to a car battery. And as you can see, everything still works fine. So with that confirmed, we're ready to proceed. Okay, so now we start on the reassembly. Now you can see that our lights are shorter rather than the plastic sleeve that we took them out of. Now we've cut them down. So what you need to do is cut down your plastic sleeving to meet the length of the lights. Leave a couple of millimeters on the end to allow for your silicone sealant on the end, and on this end you'll cut it more or less there. So run your blade through it as straight as you can. Okay. Now remember, when you put these LEDs back in, the LEDs have to now shine to the clear side of the tubing, whereas before they were shining towards the glue strip. So you open up your hole there, slide them in, as far as they go, and now you can reseal it. Now if you bought the lens kit from me, the lens kit would have come with all sorts of sealants, and you can use the same sealant that you use to put the rubber strip back around here, just to reseal this. If you don't have that, then just use some silicone sealant just to stop any moisture getting into your light, and then push the end back on there. Okay, and then we also put the other end back on there. Again, add a little bit of extra sealant just to hold it in. So now your lights are modified. It only takes a minute or two and you're ready for the next step. Okay, so now we're ready for reassembly. Now the first part of the assembly is the same for all models of lens, regardless if it's the American one with a backing or the English one without. So before we put it together, I just want to explain to you, this is a demonstration video only, and I'm not going to be covering parts that were covered in the previous video, such as gluing on your rubber, etc. But just for reference, you're going to be putting on your rubber first, and you'll bond it exactly as you should have done, shown in the other video. The next part is to install your lights. Now on the back, we've still got the backing strip that holds the glue behind it. So we're going to peel that off, revealing the glue strip. And I need some nails. Okay, we've got it. Once that's revealed, we're going to install it into the top back edge of the light. And when you install it, remember that the cable end of the lighting unit must go to the middle edge of the light, otherwise the lights won't perform correctly. So where I've asked you to cut it should give you exactly the right light length to install. So push it all the way to the back, all the way to the corners, and stick it into that back top edge, making sure it's firmly stuck. And then that's what it should look like from behind, and that's what it'll look like from the front. Okay, so following on from the installation of the LED strip, we're now going to try and tidy up the lights a little bit. So this cable, you don't want it floating around in the screen, it'll look a bit weird. But you can now buy a super strong double-sided sticky tape, mostly made by 3M, but I know there are some other makes on the market. If you get yourself a couple of inches, around 6-7 centimeters of the tape, you can stick that to the inside of the lens. Now don't put it too near to the edge, because that's where your bituminous rubbers go in. Put it a little bit lower down. Then peel the covering off the back, which can be a bit difficult to get at sometimes. Really difficult in this case. There we go. And now you can run your cables out of the way so they're not on show. Keeps them nice and tidy. And this really is super strong tape, so it's not likely to come away. Following on from that, you're going to put the backing on. Now if it's the model that had the initial lights in there, it's nice and easy, ready to go for you, and you'll just pop that on there. If you have the North American version that didn't have any lights in here, you're going to need to drill a small hole. Once you've drilled your small hole, you're going to open up this little box, which you can normally do just with a fingernail. You're going to have to unsolder the 5-6 wires here. Take a note of the one wire which is white, and when you solder it back together, you've got to remember to solder it round the right way. Then run the wires through the back of the little hole that you've drilled, and then you'll assemble it exactly the same as this one. So with this particular type, you run the cables out and through that gap there. Now the beauty of this particular type of light is the light that goes in the hole has got a rubber seal around it, and we can make use of that rubber seal to stop any moisture getting into here. So now we just reassemble it exactly as we would, remembering to remove the original bulb because you're not going to be needing that anymore. Grab hold of your screws, and put it back together. Now with the light backing that you've drilled a hole in instead of using this light unit, you're just going to have to remember to put a little bit of PU sealant or silicone sealant around the hole just to make sure no moisture gets in here. And then you're ready to move on to the next bit. So that looks pretty tidy to me. Okay guys, so now we move on to the electrical part of this demonstration. Before I do that, there's just a couple of things I want to go through with you. First of all, remember that this demonstration video is for everyone all over the world. Wiring regulations in your country might be very specific and very critical in order to pass certain tests. For instance, in Europe now there's a rule that all cables over, I think it's 4 inches, have to be double screened. So make sure all your cables are double screened. Next thing is, This box here that we've just fitted is not waterproof, but it will be exposed to the elements. If you bought this kit from me, you would have received a tube of this silicone glue. You can use that to make sure you seal around every single seam, join, cable, everything, to make sure it's 100% waterproof. Then you need to attach a piece of that super strong double-sided tape to it, and that will allow you then to keep the job tidy by sticking this nice and neatly up in the corner there on the back of the lens. Make sure it's nice and tight in there so the headlamp doesn't catch it when it goes up and down during its normal movement. The next thing is, depending on which country you're wiring this up for, will determine what you do with the cables. But one thing you will definitely have to do is extend the cable by 10 inches, around 25 centimeters. If you keep the cables the same color when you extend them, then you know where each one goes. Now, if you're using the version of light that has the built-in light already, you're not going to need to put all three through here. You can leave out the red one. This one I'm putting onto a North American car, so I need all three. But as I say, if you've got the type of light with this on and you intend on plugging that back in, do not run the red wire through this sleeving, just leave it out separate. Okay, if you're wiring up this particular type of light and you're fitting it to the car that it originally came off of, you're going to need to leave your red wire out of this sleeve. Now what I normally do is just push that through a little bit so it just grips the red wire around like that and stops it getting tugged out. Then the other end has got to go to one of these two wires. One of them will be negative, one of them will be positive. Now there are colour markings on there, but they can be quite difficult to see, so I'd strongly recommend you get out your voltmeter and just check which one is live. Whichever one is live with your lights on, that's the wire you need to connect this to. Now some people like these nice simple quick press connectors, and it's perfectly acceptable to do that if you want to do it that method. I'm not actually going to fit this, I'm just going to demonstrate how this works. You'll put one wire straight through and the other one in partially, close the lid, crimp that down, and then your live wire is connected, ready to go. So in order to connect up our new lights, we're going to have to access the car's electrical system. Before doing so, you need to make sure you put your headlights up and disconnect the negative terminal of the battery. Let's face it, you don't want your new pride and joy going up in smoke. So to do the next part of this video, you're going to need just two tools: standard Phillips screwdriver and some sort of small prying tool with a very thin blade at the end. So we now need to remove two lenses from the car in order to connect up the wiring. The first one is the snake eye lens itself, if you haven't already removed it. And if you're not sure how to remove it, that was covered in my previous video. So if you refer back to that, it'll show you exactly how to get that out. The second one we need to remove is the indicator assembly. Now this can be a little bit tricky because these things are getting old and very brittle. So you're going to need your trim tool with a nice curved end on it, and this is the plate we need to remove. Now the plate is held on with little clips at the bottom and top, and if you try to force it, you're going to end up damaging the lens. So what you need to do is try to get the trim tool into a little gap and gently run it down. Do not try to force it, it's just a very gentle working it off, like so. And you can see there's clips at the top and bottom and how they're fitted. So we'll put that to one side. Then you need your Phillips screwdriver, and you're going to undo this screw here. Put your screw to one side. Then back to your trim tool, and you need to very, very gently lever the indicator lens forward just enough to get some clearance here. Once you have that clearance, grip hold of the lens and pull it towards the front of the car, and then it comes out as easy as that. The next thing you need to do to give you more access is grab hold of the wings on the grey bulb holder and turn it anti-clockwise until it clicks. Then you can take your bulb out of the assembly and put your assembly to one side. Now at this point you can see some of the wiring has already been modified to meet the standards in the UK. We're going to be chopping that wiring out to add the new lights. You'll notice on the American models there are 3 wires. One is green with a white stripe, one is black with silver dots, and one is blue and green with silver dots. Only the American models that I know of have the 3 wires. Most other models only have 2 wires, which I'm going to show you next. Okay, so this is a Japanese car, but the wiring will be the same on all of the other cars that have a 2-wire system. On this one, it's a blue and green wire with little red dots and a black wire with a silver line to it. And at this point, that's all you need to know. When it comes to actually connecting up the wiring, I'll show you how to connect it for the 2 different models. Okay, so now we come to fitting the light in. I've decided to do the Japanese UK type first. This is an old car that I use just for demonstration purposes. So first of all, I've connected the red wire that we discussed, located the live and put on a simple electrical connector on there for now. And I've plugged the light back into the car where it belongs, just here on this white plug. Now we need to locate a hole where we can put this wire through and bring it out to the indicator on the side. So for me, I've located, I don't know if you can see just here, there's a bolt hole that's not being used for anything. So I like to use that one, or the one that's slightly bigger at the back. But the problem with that one is it's a drain hole, and any cables running through it will restrict old leaves and any muck from going through. So if you go through the nut hole, and then you see the cables coming out the bottom here. Now we've got that through, it's nice and easy to work with. But just to save holding on to this is a good time now to fit your light unit back into the car. Making sure you don't trap any of the cables as you go. Now this particular car has had a few knocks, so things don't fit properly, but I'll be lining all that up in due course with other videos. Now we have the 2 wires to connect. Now these are quite simple because here we can see the colour codes quite easily. You're going to be connecting the black wire to the black wire and the yellow wire to the blue wire. Now ordinarily I'm not a big fan of these type of connectors, although they do the job. They're not very waterproof and you do get corrosion. They also look a bit untidy, but just for the purpose of this demonstration I'm going to use them. So the first wire is the one that goes all the way through. A little bit tight in space here, and you save the back one, which doesn't have an all the way through hole, for this wire. Push it all the way in as far as it'll go, hold it with one hand, a little bit fiddly, and you want your pliers with the other hand to crimp that all the way through. Check it's nice and tight in there, and that's the first one done. Push this one over to protect it electrically. Then we put the second one on. As I say, these are a little bit tight on space, but it's all we can do at this time. Oh, and I've put that on around the wrong way. Let's start again. And this wire in. Make sure it goes all the way through. So at this point now we've put all the lenses back in and put the indicators back in, just so you can get a visual representation of what this will now look like. So with regular driving lights, you get a nice bright white light. If you compare that to the previous lights that were on this vehicle, which looks something like that, and then compare the two together, you get a lovely bright white light. And the indicators are now a lovely dynamic, which run just in time with the side indicators that were originally on there. Now there is one drawback to this type of wiring that I've done. These lights require the side lights to be on for the indicators to work. So whenever you're driving, you'll need to turn on your side lights. If you choose to, you can have a word with an auto electrician who can probably tap into your fuse box quite easily, so that the lights are powered permanently, and when you turn on your indicators are turned on. Or alternatively, if you're happy to go through the bulkhead, there are proper tap off points for accessories on your internal fuse box in the footwell. Okay, so those of you with North American models, just a quick look at the wiring for this one. On your side lights you have 3 wires. One is green with a white stripe, and you'll be connecting your yellow wire to that one. One is green and blue with little silver dots. That will be for your red wire. And finally, your black wire will go to your black wire. And fortunately for you, that wiring is a lot easier than on the 2-wire models. I hope you've enjoyed this video. I hope it helps you to wire up your lights accordingly. This isn't necessarily the best system around, and I know lots of you are going to find different ways of doing it. This is just to help out some people with a guide on how I've done it to my car. If you've enjoyed this video, don't forget to say you've liked it and subscribe to my videos. There's lots more coming soon, and I hope you've enjoyed it. Thank you.